Last month, Caleb Montgomery was found dead beaten in prison by a cellmate. 8 years ago, he led 3 men into my home. I killed them, he survived, paralyzed, a prison took him, but Riley took everything else. She said she feared me. I was the man who protected her. That night, I lost her daughter, and myself, and even now, I still sleep with one eye open. 3 years before the ambush, Caleb shoved me down the stairs for not cleaning his mess. I slammed hard but stayed quiet for Riley's sake. She begged me to let it go. My military gut screamed danger, but I ignored it. I told myself love meant patience. I'd survived worse in war zones, but this wasn't war, it was betrayal disguised as family. The little girl watching from the hallway deserved better, and I chose silence over truth. 6 months later, Caleb wrecked my truck in a rage. Riley said it was an accident. I knew better, he's threatened to take my wheels before. My fists clenched, but I walked away. Riley's daughter was watching. That truck wasn't just metal, it was freedom, my escape. My job, my therapy. I paid for repairs, swallowed the loss. Riley said, "Don't make this worse." I already was. Every compromise stripped another piece of who I was. After that, I started finding knife marks on my tires. Caleb grinned every time I brought it up. Riley said I was paranoid. I bought security cameras, one was ripped off and smashed. My gut said trap. Riley promised to handle it, but nothing changed, only more tension. Her daughter stopped calling me dad. I wondered if I was being erased from their lives. One slash at a time, someone tossed a brick through my front window at 2 a.m. No note, no camera footage, just glass and cold wind. Riley called it a random act. Caleb smirked at dinner like he'd won. I filed a police report. No follow-up. I slept with my gun nearby. Riley said I was spiraling, but my instincts were sharp, and silence was Caleb's favorite camouflage. Riley's daughter stopped hugging me. Said Caleb told her I hurt people. That lie stung worse than any punch. I asked Riley to correct it. She hesitated. Maybe it's safer this way. She said. I stared at her, betrayed. The man who broke bones was being called family, and the one who tucked the kid in every night was now the threat. What future was left for me in that house? My service dog, Tucker, came home one night with a limp and a burn mark. The vet said it was chemical. I knew who did it. Riley wept but defended Caleb, said maybe Tucker got into something. I stared at her, empty. My dog had served beside me in Kandahar. Now, he limped through my nightmares. I wondered if loyalty was just another weakness Caleb loved to exploit. The final straw came when Riley lost my gun. I kept it locked always, now it was gone. She shrugged. Maybe you misplaced it. Caleb watched from the couch, flipping channels. My fists trembled. I'd trained for war, not this. I called the police. Riley begged me to cancel the report. Said it would escalate things. I wondered how much deeper I could sink before I vanished completely. The night they broke in, it was silent. No warning, just boots on hardwood and masked faces. Caleb's voice cut through, commanding the others. I was in the hallway. Barefoot, unarmed, I bolted to the closet, grabbed the cig. My heart pounded like artillery fire. 1 shot at 2 screams. I dropped 1 attacker, then 2. The last one lunged Caleb. I pulled the trigger. He dropped. I stood in blood and disbelief. Riley arrived moments after the sirens. She saw the body's blood, chaos, gunpowder haze. I stood in boxers, shaking, weapon on the ground. She didn't rush to me, didn't ask if I was okay. Her eyes locked on Caleb, paralyzed but breathing. What did you do? She whispered. Not a thank you, not a hug. Just horror. I saved her life, and in that moment I knew I'd lost her forever. The police pulled me aside, questioned me for hours. Self-defense, yes, but why so many shots? Why so clean? I'd trained for moments like this. They made it sound wrong. Riley's silence painted guilt. Caleb was wheeled out on a stretcher, eyes locked on mine. That smirk still there. He knew he'd won something. Not the fight but Riley. My freedom came with chains of doubt. I was the soldier turned suspect. News spread fast. Veteran kills 3 in home invasion. No context, no background, just blood and bullets. My neighbors whispered. Parents crossed the street with their kids. Riley disappeared, blocked my number, her daughter too. I stared at our family photo on the fridge until I tore it down. The man who saved lives was now a threat. My medals meant nothing. All that remained was silence and the scent of gun oil in my hands. Riley's lawyer called, said she was filing for a restraining order for her and her daughter. It's precautionary, he said. I laughed, bitter, hollow. The girl I tucked in every night now feared me. My gun was legal, my actions justified. But none of that mattered, not to her, not to the system. Caleb lived, paralyzed. I walked free but not clean. No war zone ever left me this stained. My enemy wore a familiar face. At the hearing, Riley didn't look at me. Caleb testified from his wheelchair, sobbing about fear and forgiveness. I didn't speak. My lawyer said would win. But what did that mean? I'd already lost everything that mattered. The judge ruled in my favor. No charges, no conviction. But the headlines were louder than justice. I left the courtroom into a swarm of cameras, knowing the war inside me had just begun. A month later, Riley posted a photo, her daughter smiling next to Caleb. Caption, family strong, and my hands shook. I hadn't seen that smile in months. Caleb was in a neck brace, but beaming like he'd won. I sent a message. No reply, blocked again. My therapist warned me to let go, said healing doesn't come from revenge. But what if justice meant facing truth? What if protecting myself meant I was never welcome again? I tried to move on. New apartment. New locks, fewer nightmares. Then came the subpoena. Caleb was suing me for emotional damages. I laughed, then raged. Riley supported it, claimed the shooting traumatized her daughter. My lawyer called it baseless, but the headlines returned. Ex-military vigilante faces civil suit. My past wasn't past. I weren't healing, I was bleeding slower. Every paper cut reopened wounds I'd buried in locked drawers and sleepless nights. Riley showed up at my door one night, tears, apologies, shaking hands, said Caleb hit her, said she made a mistake. I stood frozen. The woman I bled for now wanted safety again. I let her in, she held me like old times. But I saw the fear in her eyes. Not of Caleb, of me. I realized then I wasn't home. I was the shelter after the storm she helped create. Forgiveness wasn't healing. It was survival. Caleb violated parole, caught with drugs in his cell. Headlines buried it, no cameras, no apology, just a footnote. His lawsuit crumbled, but damage remained. Riley vanished again. I found a note on my doorstep, thank you, but we can't, no name. Just pain, the girl I loved gone, her daughter lost. My therapist said closure isn't clean. I nodded. But that didn't stop me from locking every door twice that night. Justice was never about peace. An old friend sent me a clip, Caleb on a prison podcast, mocking me. Guy thinks he's a hero. I'm still breathing and he laughed. Metal braces clinking, my hands shook. My therapist warned against watching. I clicked replay 10 times. Each time, my heart tightened. Not from hate, from grief. The man who shattered my life got a platform. I got silence. Truth doesn't trend, it haunts, and sometimes it taunts from behind bars. I visited my mom, she handed me a photo, me in uniform. Riley and the girl beside me. You still protect, she said. I broke, tears unfiltered. I wasn't a monster, but I wasn't a savior either. Just a man who survived. That photo went in my wallet. Not as proof but reminder. Pain doesn't erase purpose. Caleb could rant, Riley could run. But I'd protect my peace even if it cost everything I once loved. Months passed. One morning I got a letter from Riley's daughter. A drawing of me with Tucker, both smiling. One word, safe, no return address. Just her handwriting. I clutched it like a medal. My heart cracked open. Maybe I wasn't erased. Maybe she remembered. I framed it, hung it near the door. That word, safe, meant more than forgiveness. It was recognition. And in all the darkness, it lit the smallest, fiercest fire in me again. Tucker passed away quietly, old age, they said. But I saw it in his eyes. He waited until I was okay. I buried him near the woods we used to walk. Alone, I said goodbye. No ceremony, just a hand on fresh dirt and a whisper thank you. That night, I slept through for the first time in years. No gun under my pillow. No dread, just the echo of pause and unconditional love. I volunteered at a shelter training rescue dogs for vets. One pup, gray and clumsy, latched onto me. I named him Ghost. He followed every step, every breath. People smiled at us again. Not with fear but with curiosity. I shared my story at a PDT group. No shame, just facts. Caleb's name never came up. Riley's face faded. But that little drawing is still in my wallet. Ghost barked when I cried. I think Tucker trained him. An interview request came from a journalist, a series on veterans who'd survived homegrown wars. I declined. But she persisted, brought coffee, listened more than talked. I told my story not for revenge but clarity. When it aired, comments flooded in, support, empathy. When said, I thought I was alone. That line hit hardest. I wasn't a monster. I wasn't a hero. Just a man who endured. And maybe that was enough to start again. Ghost went missing one night. I searched for hours, panicked, spiraling, found him outside Riley's old house, sitting waiting like he remembered, like he knew something I didn't. I didn't knock, I just stared at that porch. A light flicked on, a silhouette taller now. Riley's daughter, she stepped out, waved once, then shut the door, no words, just a moment. I whispered thanks to Ghost, he led me home. Sometimes closure wears a child's quiet grace. A package arrived, no return label, inside a small photo album, me Riley. Her daughter, each day, Christmas, smiles frozen in time. No note, just a post-it on the cover, he can't erase this. I sat on the floor for hours flipping through pages. I didn't know if Riley sent it. Maybe the girl, maybe fate. But it reminded me love existed. Once, and it wasn't all fake. That album stayed by my bed. I started writing just pages at first. Memories, triggers, lessons. A therapist suggested turning it into a book. I laughed but kept writing. My story wasn't about violence, it was about boundaries. Healing and hard truths. I didn't need to be loved again. Just understood. The title came easy, 14 seconds. The time it took to kill 3 men. The time it took to lose a life and start another. Truth in print. Finally mine to own. I got an email from Riley. No apology, just a sentence, thank you for protecting us. No attachment, no emojis. I stared at it for hours. Didn't reply, didn't delete, just left it there, a ghost in my inbox. Ghost barked once like punctuation. I took a deep breath, it wasn't closure. But it was acknowledgement. I clicked archive. Some ghosts you don't fight, you store them. So they stop haunting your every day. At a veterans conference, a woman approached me, early 30s, nervous smile, said her brother had PDT2, bought my book, said it helped. She wasn't sure how but it gave her language. We sat and talked for an hour. No trauma dump, just human connection. Before she left, she said, I think you saved someone, maybe I had. Maybe that was the point. Not revenge, not justice, just breaking the silence. One voice at a time. The night I got the call, I was making tea. Caleb was dead, stabbed by another inmate. No trial, no headline, just a body and a report. I sat in silence. No tears, no joy, just stillness. Ghost nudged my knee, I sipped my tea. The war ended without me. Riley didn't call, no one did. And that was okay. I wasn't waiting anymore. Pieces in a moment, it's a decision you make and keep making. I still wake up early, not from fear, just habit. I journal now. Ghost curls at my feet while I write. That photo album. Still near my bed, not for longing but for memory. Healing isn't about erasing pain, it's about choosing what stays, and I choose peace, every morning. One word at a time, I rebuild. Some scars don't fade, but they stop burning. Riley's silence no longer stings. Her daughter's drawing and now framed, anchors me. When I feel lost, I touch it, not to relive the past but to remind myself who I was, who I am, a protector, a survivor, not perfect, not whole but present. That's more than I thought I'd ever be again. It's been 5 years. My book's in its third printing. I lead trauma workshops for veterans and teens. Riley never reached out again. That's okay. Some stories close in silence, but mine speaks loud. Through every hand raised in a classroom, every nod in group, this peace I earned, go sleep soundly at my side. His breathing calms me more than any medication ever did. At night, I lock the doors not from fear but routine. I survived war, betrayal, and silence. Now I live with truth. Not all battles leave blood, some just leave you stronger. Scarred but standing tall.